Capitalization and punctuation. Let's look at the basics of capitalization. You must always capitalize the first word in a sentence, in a quotation, and in the salutation and closing of a letter. Don't be lazy. We always capitalize the beginning of the sentence like the instructor said, arrange the chairs in a semicircle. You will notice that that first word in quotation marks, that is capitalized. My dear Mrs. Foley, that's like the greeting of a letter. You would capitalize my because it's the first letter. Then also with love. When you say sincerely, that's easy. That's one word. You capitalize it. But when you have two words or more like this, it's just the first word that's capitalized. You need to capitalize the names, initials, and titles of people and places. That's pretty easy. You learned that in elementary school. So Mrs. Foley is capitalized, and you'll notice that the Mrs., which we'll talk about down here, which is a type of title for a person, you need to capitalize that. Then we need to also capitalize the first word, the last word, and every important word in the title of a song, a story, a play, a book, or a movie. So if there was a story called A New Settlement on the Frontier, you need to capitalize the first word always. Then new, settlement, and frontier are important words. Then Full Tilt, the book that we're reading, both words are capitalized in that title. And the song Rain on Me, you would capitalize rain and me. Next, you capitalize the names of days, months, holidays, streets, natural features, titles of people, which I was talking about, like Mrs., Mr., Doctor, and so on and so forth, Miss. And then also specific regions, like regions of a country, that kind of thing. So 4th of July, you capitalize 4th and July because that is a holiday. You don't need to capitalize of because that's not important. Days of the week, like Tuesday, you capitalize. Rocky Mountains is a region, an area, a natural feature of the United States of America. So Rocky and mountains are both capitalized. Here's what I was talking about. Doctor and Mrs. go along with the names. Those are titles, so you would capitalize those. And then the Midwest. You don't need to capitalize the unless it's the beginning of a sentence, but Midwest is a region of the United States, so you would capitalize that. Finally, capitalize proper adjectives. Proper adjectives are like proper nouns. However, they describe somebody. They refer to people, nationalities, or political, religious groups, that kind of thing. So when you're talking about an Egyptian mummy, the mummy's from Egypt, the place, the country, so you need to capitalize that adjective describing mummy because it's a place that is an adjective, Egyptian. Then American dollar. We're talking about a dollar that's in the United States of America, and American is a proper adjective. Finally, religions like Catholicism and Lutheran, you would capitalize the people or any type of text that is describing based on the religion, like Catholics, Catholicism, Catholic Bible, things like that, you would capitalize. Let's look at the basics of commas. I see a lot of people mess this up in their writing, and I'm hoping that you'll improve your writing by learning this. You need to use commas with what's called non-restrictive clauses. That makes no sense, I'm sure, but what non-restrictive clauses are, they're just a set of words that add information to a sentence, but they don't change the meaning of a sentence. And in fact, a lot of times we call them appositives. So appositives are extra information put into a sentence that describe something else in the sentence. So for example, here we have using commas to enclose information that's related to the sentence, but not really essential. Ms. Jackson, who is my favorite teacher, teaches math and science classes. This who is my favorite teacher, this is what we call that non-restrictive clause. It's adding information, but you don't really need it for the sentence. You could just have a sentence that says, Ms. Jackson teaches math and science classes. If I put Ms. Jackson, comma, my favorite teacher, that's an appositive adding more information to the words Ms. Jackson. Then you have commas separate items in a series. You should know this. I need to buy strawberries, comma, blueberries, comma, and grapes at the store. We have 3 items, so we have 2 commas that separate them. Then use commas after introductory words and phrases. In conclusion, comma, the dog is the best animal. First, comma, put your shirt on. For example, comma, the seeds of the strawberry can be used to grow more strawberries. So anytime you begin a sentence that with a transition like that, you would put the comma after it. Then you use commas with coordinated conjunctions. That's those words like but, so, and, yet, that kind of thing. And when they're joining 2 complete sentences, which we also call independent clauses. I wanted to go to the pool, comma, but it started thundering. If I took this, I wanted to go to the pool, that could be a sentence standing by itself. Also, it started thundering. That's a complete sentence. But when we put this word but in there, we need a comma before it. Next, you use commas to separate speech tags in the main sentence from quotations. This here is a speech tag. Who is saying whatever's in quotation marks? She said, comma, quotation mark, I told you not to do that. And then you end with the punctuation and the quotation mark at the end. Also here, the speech tag could be at the end. I wanted to do it, comma, and that's all in quotation marks, said Dave. You could also have a speech tag in the middle. Like you could say, I told you not to do that, comma, and that quotation mark. She said, comma, quotation mark, I wanted to do it, period, end quotation mark. So you would have commas in between them as well. Then you could use commas to separate parts of the date. Tuesday, comma, June 23rd, comma, 2020. And then commas separate a name and the rest of the sentence when you're talking to someone. Jake, comma, will you stop it already? Mrs. Urban, comma, I need to use the bathroom. Anytime you're speaking directly to somebody, you should put a comma after their name when you're writing it. Let's look at semicolons, colons, parentheses, and dashes. A lot of times these are used incorrectly or not used when they should be. A semicolon, if you remember, that's that period on the top with the comma on the bottom. They're used between 2 complete sentences that are related, but there's no conjunction between them. Like there's no and, no but, anything like that. Here's an example. Eat the chicken, semicolon, the fish is not very good. It would be correct to say, eat the chicken because the fish is not very good, or eat the chicken, comma, and then use a coordinating conjunction in there, the fish is not very good. But here, you could just have this complete sentence, eat the chicken, and this complete sentence, the fish is not very good, simply separated by a semicolon, and that's pretty advanced for a writer. For colons, you use that before a list. 3 things are on my mind, colon, my homework, comma, my lunch, comma, and my dog. You'll see that they're separated in a series by commas, but that colon just shows a list. For parentheses, you use it to enclose information that's not important to a sentence, but it might add something interesting to the sentence. It could be used with examples, directions, explanations, and even for dates. Here are some examples. The poems of Edgar Allan Poe, and then in parentheses we have 2 specific poems, The Raven and The Bells, often contain sound imagery that heightens the emotional feel of the poetry. Here's another one. My house is the second house on the right, and then in parentheses we have next to the 7-Eleven. And then here, the book title Full Tilt, the date that it was released, 2003, is an awesome book. Finally, you have dashes. These are used to signal a break in your train of thought, like when you are thinking and then you pause and then think something else. So here's an example. I think the test is on Thursday, dash, no, Friday, dash of this week. So you're thinking it's on Thursday, but then you pause and you change it, no, it's on Friday, and then those dashes separate that no Friday. Okay, so let's try it. Number 1, which of the following sentences is not punctuated correctly? Now I'm going to tell you that one way to really know and have something stand out when you're trying to figure out if it's punctuated correctly is you should be pausing when you read punctuation. So whether it's a dash, whether it is a comma, whether it's a semicolon, whether it's a colon, you are pausing, and that will help you hear if it makes sense. Okay, so A, we have Edgar Allan Poe, 1809 to 1849, was famous for mysterious stories and his strange behavior. You'll notice that the dates were separated by dashes. B, in 1846, Edgar Allan Poe moved to a cottage at Fordham, now part of New York City. C, Poe married his cousin Virginia Clem, who was only 13 at the time of their marriage. And then D, Poe is still considered to be one of the best, if not the greatest, short story writers. This is pretty tough. You really have to think about this. I'm hoping that when you listen to me read those aloud, that the first one, A, you figured out that those dashes look crazy there. Like, it's really hard to really look at that sentence. So A is definitely not right. But how do we figure out between B, C, and D which one's right? Well, I want to point out that if you look at C, we're talking about marrying a cousin Virginia Clem. Virginia Clem is giving more information about who this cousin is. That's what we called an appositive. So that means that you should have a comma here in between cousin and Virginia Clem, because it would sound better to say Poe married his cousin, Virginia Clem, who was only 13 at the time of their marriage. Then that would make more sense. When you look at D, it says Poe is still considered to be one of the best, if not the greatest. In here, I would say that dashes aren't the best use here. You might want to use commas in there, or even parentheses, because it's giving kind of that added value, so parentheses might be the best for this. That means that B is correct, and the reason why B is correct is we have this introduction in 1846, comma, then you pause. Then you have that he moved to this cottage at Fordham, and it says that now it's part of New York City. That gives that added information in there, and that's why that should be in parentheses. So B is the correct answer. Number 2, study the sentence below, then answer the question that follows. My favorite book is The Wind in the Willows. In this sentence, the word wind is capitalized because it is a proper noun, is an important word in a title, is a proper adjective, or it begins the sentence. I think you probably got this one. If you said that it is an important word in a title, then you are correct. Last one, which sentence is punctuated correctly? Now remember, the best way to do this is to pause at punctuation. And if you are taking a test and you don't have somebody reading the test aloud to you, like me, where I pause at the punctuation, this is where it comes in handy to maybe read it aloud to yourself, whether you're whispering or something, and then pause at the punctuation. So listen carefully. Grandpa gave me a huge present, but he said I had to wait until my birthday to open it. B. Grandpa gave me a huge present, but he said I had to wait until my birthday to open it. C. Grandpa gave me a huge present, but he said I had to wait until my birthday to open it. D. Grandpa gave me a huge present, but he said I had to wait until my birthday to open it. So they sounded very, very similar. So think about it. Where should I pause or not pause? If you thought that A was wrong because I needed to pause, you're right. But that brings us to B, C, and D, which are all very similar, but the only thing different here is B has a comma, C has a semicolon, and D has a colon. So which is correct? We can definitely take out D because the colon's only for a list, and this is not a list. So now we're here with, is it a comma or a semicolon? Because we have this magic word but, we need to have a comma, not a semicolon. A semicolon and a conjunction like but never go together. However, if we took out the word but, this sentence would be perfect. Okay, so that means that B is the correct answer. All right, your last thing to do for this lesson is to go to the last slide, and whether you click on here or on the picture, you will come to the link that will take you to the Google form to complete. Make sure you put in your name and read these sentences aloud to yourself, pausing at the punctuation. See what makes sense and answer the best you can and submit it, and then I will record your grade.